Anthony Albanese will be sworn in as Australia's 31st Prime Minister this morning, cementing a seismic shift in the country's politics. In just a few hours, the Labor leader will head to Government House, along with 4 key members of his leadership team, before almost immediately leaving the country to attend the Quad meeting in Tokyo. The makeup of the Parliament is still unclear, with the ABC projecting Labor currently has 72 seats and is chasing the 76 needed for a majority.
Voters across the country turned away from the coalition on Saturday with an avalanche of climate independents taking former Liberal strongholds, a lift in support for the Greens and a massive swing to Labor in the West. So many angles, so many stories to talk about this morning. Let's bring in the soon-to-be sworn-in Finance Minister, Katy Gallagher. She's in Canberra for us this morning. Katy Gallagher, good morning to you and congratulations.
Good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
First things first, do you expect Labor will achieve a majority?
Well, there's certainly a strong and credible path to majority for us. Obviously, there's a fair bit more counting to go, but there's a number of seats where, we are ahead and we're hoping to stay ahead. So more on that, or stay tuned for that during the count, I think, in the first half of this week. OK, so you're fairly confident a majority is more likely than not for Labor? Well, as I said, it's a strong and credible path. We need more votes to come in. We've been campaigning for majority government. We're hopeful of majority government, but there's more votes to be counted. That's the reality. We've got a few more days to go. OK, big result for Labor on Saturday. What do you put your success down to? Well, I think Australians voted for change on the weekend. They voted for a change in the style of government, in the style of leadership of government, and they certainly put strong support behind some of the key policies that Labor was campaigning on. So climate, one of them, integrity, the other one, and you saw that right across the country. And I think, it was a massive and historic moment for the Labor Party and a huge achievement for Anthony Albanese and the leader he's been for us as the leader of our parliamentary caucus for the last 3 years. OK, so Anthony Albanese, he'll be sworn in along with you and a few other members of the leadership team this morning. Then he flies off to the Quad talks in Tokyo. That's obviously a very important international focus. But what will the new Prime Minister's main domestic focus be? What's the number one on the list of priorities domestically? Well, I think what he'll be making sure, obviously this is a very important meeting for him, the Quad meeting, and he'll be attending there representing Australia as Prime Minister. In terms of domestic priorities, he's made it clear to his team that he wants to get cracking. He wants us on the job, working, delivering our commitments to the Australian people. It doesn't seem very long, 3 years. It's a short, period of time in politics, so we have to hit the ground running day one. Jim, Richard and I will do that this week, and of course as the votes come in and the caucus is finalised, the caucus will go through its processes early next week. OK, so dealing with the economy will be a big task. I noticed Jim Chalmers, the soon-to-be sworn-in Treasurer, was meeting with Stephen Kennedy, the Treasury Secretary, yesterday. Any nasty surprises emerging from that meeting? I haven't caught up with Jim. I was catching up with Rosemary Huxtable yesterday, the head of the Finance Department. So we're taking those early briefings yesterday. We'll continue through this week. But we've got a lot to get across. There's huge challenges facing the economy with, rising inflation, interest rates on the way up. And we need to get the full briefing and get a full assessment of where we're at and then start making some decisions, particularly around how we implement our election commitments. So it's going to be a busy rest of the year, probably busy rest of the 3 years, Michael. Now, you're in the Senate. How are the numbers shaping up as you see it there so far? Yeah, so the Senate's always a bit more difficult to predict because some of those final seats, essentially the 6th seat in each state, can go to quite a, for another week or so, and it can change day by day, but it definitely looks like we might have some extra Greens, we might have an extra Labor senator, and it looks like we'll have an independent here in the ACT if the vote continues the way it's going at the moment. So it does look like a slightly changed Senate. and, you know, a large crossbench to work with, but that's not unusual in the Senate. But yes, it looks like the Senate is going to represent and reflect, the new senators, the vote of the Australian people, which is, as I said, was for action on integrity and action on climate change and a different style of politics.
Action on climate change was, as you say, a very big issue. It saw the Teal independents sweep to power in those seats in Sydney, Melbourne and the rest of the country. It saw the big lift in primary vote for the Greens. If it comes to it, is Labor prepared to negotiate with the Greens in the Senate to come up with potentially more aggressive emission reductions target?
Well, we've made it clear through the campaign, and we're not changing that we will implement the policy we took to the Australian people, and that had an emissions reduction target of 43%, and that's what we will do.
No change to that?
Well, that is the commitment we've made to the Australian people. You know, in the Senate, we will work with all parties in terms of progressing our agenda. But on climate, we've been clear that that is our policy and that is the policy we're going to implement.
Are you disappointed the Christina Keneally experiment in the seat of Fowler failed so spectacularly over the weekend?
Well, I'll certainly miss Christina, and I think she's a loss to our caucus. I worked closely with her in the Senate. I've spoken to her over the weekend. Politics is a pretty brutal business at times. But yeah, she's a loss, and you know, but the people of Fowler have returned another candidate, and that's, you know, we saw that right across the country. I think one of the strong messages out of the weekend is there is no such thing as a safe seat in politics, and there should be no seat that is seen as safe. People are rewarding candidates that are working hard in their local communities right across the board, and we saw that in the Liberal seats that were lost as well. And
also, just as we wrap up, no longer any safe voting bloc for either of the major parties. Labor's won, but your primary vote went backwards ever so slightly. How does the Labor government Labor Party deal with what has been a huge change to the political landscape on that front?
By being a good government, Michael, by being the type of government that Anthony has set out, a government of integrity and honesty, and a government that delivers on its commitments, and a government that brings the country together and brings the parliament together. And I think if, you know, they are the things that one of his greatest strengths is that kind of approach, and I have no doubt that he's the right man to lead this parliament, and we will be rewarded if we are a good government, and we intend on being just that.
Katie Gallagher, thanks for joining us on News Breakfast.
Thanks very much, Michael.
And Anthony Albanese has just left his home in Marrickville in Sydney to head to Canberra. Here he is a short while ago.
Good morning. How are you feeling about today, Mr. Morning. Oh, it's a big day in my life, but a big day for the country when we change the government. I want to lead a government that has the same sentiment of optimism and hope that I think defines the Australian people. I want to be positive. I want to channel the opportunity that we have to shape change so that we bring people with us on the journey of change. I want to bring the country together, and the new government starts today. Thanks very much.